All right, so are you ready to take a deep dive into Eli Lilly with me today?
I am. I am. Always excited to dig into these game changers in healthcare, especially when they're making waves for investors, too.
Yeah, I definitely are. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at this article, The Unstoppable Rise of Eli Lilly, a game changer in obesity and diabetes treatment. I'm basically trying to figure out, is this company, is this a stock that you want to add to your portfolio, right?
Right.
So there's a lot to unpack here, but basically we're going to be focusing on their, super successful drug, Mounjaro, their financials, because
Right.
they're looking really, really good.
Hmm.
And of course, we got to look at the competition, right?
Absolutely.
So let's start with Mounjaro. Now, this is not your average weight loss drug, okay?
No.
This thing it's getting some amazing results. We're talking like up to 22.5% weight loss in trials.
That's incredible. That's way more than we're seeing with, some of the other popular drugs out there like Wegovy or Ozempic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. And you know what really makes Mounjaro stand out?
What's that?
It's this dual action thing they've got going on. So it's not just for weight loss, it's for diabetes management too.
Yeah.
Like it's hitting both of those things at the same time.
And that's huge, right? You're talking about millions of people who are struggling with both of these conditions. And to have one treatment that can effectively address both it's a real game changer, It's no wonder everyone's so excited about it.
Yeah. And the market's definitely reacting, right? I mean, we saw Eli Lilly's revenue jump by 20% just last year,
Wow.
2024, and their stock price, boom, 33% increase. I mean, that says something right there.
It definitely does, yeah. It shows that investors are really confident in the company's growth potential. And, you can see that reflected in their financials, too. They've got a pretty high price-to-earnings ratio, like 86.48. And their price-to-sales ratio is 17.70. So those are high. Some people might look at that and think, ooh, is that a little risky? But I think it also reflects, like, just how much faith people have in their future earnings,
Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to get a piece of that pie. You know what I mean?
But of course, they're not the only ones in this game, right?
Yeah.
There's competition. So tell me about that landscape.
Yeah, so their main rival, the big one that everyone's talking about is Novo Nordisk. They're the company behind Ozempic and Wegovy.
Yeah.
And, they definitely have that first mover advantage, right? They were the first ones to really hit the market with this type of treatment. But the thing is, Eli Lilly's Mounjaro, it's just getting better results when it comes to weight loss. And that's a big deal for patients, obviously, but also for healthcare providers, right? It's a pretty powerful differentiator.
Yeah. So it's like a battle, right?
Okay.
For market dominance.
Okay.
So what should investors be like paying attention to as this plays out? What are the key things to watch? Well, I think pricing is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Whoever can offer the most competitive price, and then along with that, whoever can secure the best insurance coverage, that's going to be huge in attracting patients and ultimately, boosting those sales. So yeah, I think those are definitely two things to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, because it's not enough to just have a great product, right?
No.
You've got to navigate all this complex world of healthcare and economics and everything. So it sounds like, they're thinking ahead, right? They're not just like developing drugs. They're thinking strategically about how to make this work, as a business.
Right. They're definitely scaling up production because, the demand for Mounjaro, it's through the roof, right?
Yeah.
So they've got to meet that demand. And they're also, like you said, they're thinking ahead. They're working through all those regulatory hoops, making sure that everything is smooth sailing to get their products out there. And, and they're working hard to get that insurance coverage because that's crucial for patients to be able to access it. But it's also crucial for their bottom line, right?
Right. So they're innovating, they're scaling up, they're being strategic.
Yeah. Yeah.
All signs point to like a company that's set up for success, that's ready for it.
They seem to be firing on all cylinders, yeah. It is impressive, but, we do have to remember that these GLP-1 drugs, they don't come cheap.
Right.
And so that raises some questions about like affordability and, who's actually going to be able to get access to these treatments. That could really change people's lives.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it sounds like Eli Lilly's kind of got to walk this tightrope, right, between making these drugs accessible, but also making sure that they can stay profitable, right, as a company.
Yeah, exactly. It's tricky. There's no easy answers here. Trying to find that balance between between profits and patient access, that's a challenge for any pharmaceutical company, right? But I think it's especially tricky in this case just because the market for these drugs it's potentially huge.
It is. It is. Okay, so it's not just about, blockbuster drugs and the stock price going up, up, up.
Yeah.
Investors really need to think about these, the ethical and societal implications too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Of what the company's doing. Okay, so let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about the future. Like, what needs to happen for Eli Lilly to keep this momentum going? They've had such an incredible run. What needs to happen for them to stay on top?
Well, I think there are a few key things, right, that are really going to determine their long-term success. So first of all, they've got to manage production, right?
Right.
And they've got to do it efficiently because the demand for Mounjaro, it's growing so fast, and any disruptions in production that could really impact their profits, and it could even shake investor confidence.
Right. Yeah, because it's such a delicate balance, right? Like, they have to ramp up production, but they can't let quality slip, and they don't want to create bottlenecks or anything like that. So that's a big challenge in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second thing is, they've got to be smart about how they navigate the regulatory landscape, right? Because the pharmaceutical industry it's heavily regulated.
It is.
And any delays in approvals, for new drugs or new uses for existing drugs, that could really throw a wrench in their plans for growth, right?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that the government, regulations and policies, they can have a huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
on a company,
right?
Especially in a field like pharmaceuticals.
For sure. And then I guess the third thing is, we've got to think about pricing pressures because they're probably gonna keep increasing, right?
Yeah.
As more competitors come into the picture, and as healthcare costs in general continue to be a big focus, I think Eli Lilly's really gonna have to be careful to balance their profitability with making sure that their drugs are affordable.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got to thread the needle, right?
Yeah.
To keep everyone happy, the patients and the insurance companies and the investors, right?
Right.
Is there anything else investors should kind of keep in mind as they're evaluating Eli Lilly?
I think they should also be thinking about the long-term implications of drug pricing and access. You know what I mean? Because public perception, that can change pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
And government policies can shift. So I think Eli Lilly's got to be, proactive and transparent about addressing those concerns, right? It's all about building trust and showing people that they're committed to being a responsible company, and that can affect their reputation and ultimately their bottom line.
Right. So it sounds like we've got, production, regulation, pricing, and public perception, all these things kind of playing a role, right? In Eli Lilly's future. That's a lot to manage.
It is. All of those things, they're going to determine whether Eli Lilly can stay on top, right?
Yeah.
Whether they can maintain that leadership position in this field that's changing so quickly. And so for investors, it's so important to understand those challenges, right? And to really think about how the company is planning to deal with them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, when you first hear about Mounjaro, it's all very exciting, right? But there's so much more to it.
There is.
When you really start digging deeper into the company's operations and their strategies and their long-term prospects.
Yeah, exactly. You got to look beyond the headlines, right? You got to develop this deeper understanding of where the company's headed.
You do. Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about. It's amazing, to see how these scientific breakthroughs, they can have such a big impact on the world, right?
Yeah.
And create these really interesting investment opportunities.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we're living in this time of incredible advancements and the healthcare sector. It's just full of possibilities, right?
It is.
But it's also a good reminder that if you want to be a smart investor, you've got to really understand what's going on,
You do. Okay, so let's bring this back to our listeners, right? What does all of this mean for someone who's thinking about, maybe adding Eli Lilly to their portfolio?
I mean, it's a really interesting opportunity, right? Eli Lilly, they've got these innovative products. Their financials are strong. They seem to have good vision for the future. But like any investment, there's always risks.
Right.
The competition is getting tougher, and there's always the chance of regulatory hurdles popping up and pricing pressures. I mean, those are always a concern in this industry.
Yeah, and we can't forget about those ethical considerations we talked about earlier.
Right.
Those are a big part of the picture too.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyone who's thinking about investing, they really need to weigh all of these factors, right? Think about their own, risk tolerance and what their investment goals are, and make a decision based on all of that, right? Don't just jump in because of the hype,
Right.
Do your research, think long term, and remember, slow and steady wins the race when it comes to investing.
It's all about making those informed decisions, right? That fit with your overall strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, the future of healthcare, it's exciting, right? And companies like Eli Lilly, they're leading the charge, but investing in the sector, it requires a thoughtful approach. You gotta really understand like all the moving parts.
Yeah, you do. Well, this has been really great. I feel like I've learned a lot from this deep dive.
Me too.
It's just amazing to see how these scientific advancements can have such a real impact on people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And create these, really compelling investment opportunities at the same time.
Yeah, it's a great time to be, following the healthcare sector, but it's also, you've got to do your homework, you know what I mean?
You do. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, right? We've talked about how Eli Lilly is pushing boundaries, right?
Yeah.
They're achieving this remarkable success. But their journey's not over, right? I mean, there are still challenges ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So the question for you, for our listeners, is how will they navigate those challenges?
Yeah.
How will they be able to maintain their position as a leader in this industry that's changing so fast?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And I think, when you're thinking about that, you got to think about their strategies, right? And who they're up against and what are the bigger trends that are shaping the healthcare landscape, and most importantly, like how do all of these things line up with your own goals as an investor, right? And how do you assess Eli Lilly's potential for success in the long run?
That's a lot to consider, but it's exciting.
Oh, it is.
It's a thrilling time to be following healthcare, but it also requires careful analysis and you got to be forward thinking.
You do, yeah. Knowledge is power, right? Especially when it comes to investing. So stay curious, stay informed, and make good choices.
Make good choices. All right. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Eli Lilly.
Mm-hmm.
We hope you learned something, found it useful.
Yeah, we hope it gave you some things to think about as you explore different investment opportunities, right? In this really exciting and constantly evolving field.
It is. Well, thank you for joining us on the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep investing wisely.
That's right.